The Audi RS3 that we had on the channel recently is like a bullet train, fast, predictable, and stuck on the tarmac with surgical precision, while the BMW M2 is more like a roller coaster ride at your local theme park. Equally as fast, if not faster, but more energetic, more vibrant, and mildly nauseating. In fact, if you're not careful, you might find yourself stuck in a ditch. Thankfully, that's just AI and not the actual car, but you get the point. Both cars reach the same result, but with completely different approaches. This particular M2 example has been lent to the channel by BMW West Rand, and thank you to Kelly and the team for making this happen. So let's dive straight in because I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about its practicality, its features. I'm going to take it on a drive and tell you what it feels like on the road. And then tell you what it'll cost to own one. So without further ado, let's get started. Car Talks. Power, precision, performance. The new boxy Lego design is polarizing on the internet, to say the least. But looks are subjective, and I'll let you be the judge of that. But as with all modern BMWs, we simply grow to love them over time, and the M2 is no exception. It looks seriously imposing in the flesh, even in alpine white. This one has an aftermarket front splitter, which I think makes it look more complete. The M2 gets wider wheel arches than the regular 2 Series, which creates a beefier stance. It also gets LED daytime running lights, but these are not the fancy song and dance kind that you get in the RS3. This unit is fitted with the standard quad tailpipes, but for 153,000 rands, you can have the M Performance exhaust with the center quad pipes. And if my memory serves me well, this isn't even available on the South African configurator, so I had to call in a few favors to extract the pricing from BMW directly. The normal exhaust is a classic design, and visually I just like it better. Moving on to practicality and features, you get 390 liters worth of boot capacity, which is 20 liters more than that of the Mercedes-AMG A45S and 69 more than the Audi RS3 sedan. You get a 40-20-40 split folding rear bench, and under the boot cover is your... It looks like BMW has not fixed this yet because there's still no lever to pull up the boot cover after all these years.
One eternity later.
As I was saying, under the boot cover is your battery, and that's because most modern BMWs are on run-flat tires, so there's no spare wheel. The boot is of course manually operated with a nice expensive sounding thump. Stepping into the rear, you get a leather bench for 2 and a small storage space in the middle of the 2 seats, which I guess is for what? A loaf of bread. You do, however, get ISOFIX anchor points to safely mount your child seat. And speaking of safety, the 2 Series, which this is based on, gets a 4-star Euro NCAP rating. You also get 2 air vents. Space in the back of an M2 has been significantly improved over the model it replaces, but I'm 1.78 meters tall or 5'10", and sitting behind my driving position is still a bit of a tight squeeze because, as you can see, I have to sit with my legs kind of open. Which takes me back to 2021 during COVID, because before we purchased the 3 Series, the previous generation M240i in Estoril Blue was one of the vehicles we had shortlisted. It had a beautiful red interior with only 12,000 kilometers on the clock. It basically hadn't gone for its first service yet, and most importantly, it had the M Performance exhaust. The cherry on top was that the pricing was just right. This particular example was 699,000 rands, which was exactly 10,000 rands less than the G20 we ended up going for. The only issue was really the thought of getting out of the car in the rain to let a passenger in or out, because I'm very big on family, so I like the idea of enjoying my possessions with them. So I'm quite pedantic about having a secondary family car for us all to enjoy if I do buy a coupe. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense at all. Well, at least not for my personal circumstances anyway. And that is the story of the M240i in a nutshell. Moving along to the front, you get electrically adjustable M Sport seats which come as standard with the M2. However, 95,000 rands will get you the optional M carbon bucket seats, which you'll probably need if you're going to be tracking the car because they do offer more support around the bands. But the ordinary M Sport seats are more comfortable for everyday driving anyway. You get M Sport seat belts with the M tricolor or tricolor as standard. And if you ever catch your girlfriend in a quote-unquote Uber Black that has these bad boys, my brother, I'm sorry to say that you need to focus on yourself. Go to the gym and make more money because that relationship is irreparable. You get black roof lining which gives the interior a premium look. And now, there's no sunroof of course because the M2 gets a carbon fiber roof as standard. The carbon looks incredible, but to be honest, I'd love to have a sunroof option because sunroofs are becoming increasingly important in the South African automotive landscape. Conversely, I love the carbon fiber treatment in the interior. You even get it on the steering wheel and the paddle shifts, and they look absolutely incredible. Those paddle shifts feel great to the touch as well. My favorite button in the cabin has to be this one, which opens up the flaps and makes the exhaust louder, but more on that later. Overall, interior quality is supreme, and in terms of ergonomics, it's pretty neat in here and it feels like a mini 3 Series, which was not the case with the previous generation 2 Series, so they've really stepped up with this one. You get a massive 14.9-inch infotainment system with wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. The 12.3-inch instrument cluster is now brighter than ever before with high-definition graphics. I like that. You get a wireless charger with a USB Type-A port, a couple of cup holders, and ample storage in the cubbyhole and center storage bin, which also has an additional USB Type-C port. And in true coupe fashion, the M2 gets frameless doors. Now, before we take off for a drive, there are of course 3 drive modes, namely Road, Sport, and Track. Track basically uplifts all of the driver assistance aids and basically you are on your own. And because I don't want to find myself with a 1.5 million rand headache, I'll keep things on road. With that being said, let's start her up and go for a drive. So, you are joining me from the inside of the G87 BMW M2, and as you may have already noticed by now, this is the pre-facelift model, which is the pre-lifecycle impulse aka pre-LCI model if you want to be fancy. And LCI just means facelift in BMW speak. So it still has the round steering wheel as opposed to the flat bottom one in the LCI model, which now also has these futuristic air vents that I'm not a fan of. The pre-LCI gets a modest 338 kilowatts and 550 Newton meters of torque, if you could ever call that modest. Power is sent to the rear wheels only via an 8-speed automatic gearbox. It weighs 1,780 kilograms, so it's quite a porker, isn't it? But that's only on paper because you don't feel that on the road, and that's what's more important. It'll do the 0 to 100 km/h sprint in a claimed 4.1 seconds. For comparison, the facelift shaves that time down to 4 seconds dead because power is bumped up to 353 kilowatts and torque is up to 600 Newton meters. Back end. It is tail happy for sure. Even with the ESC on, the M2 is still very much tail happy. And so this is not the kind of car you give to your cousin on the 16th of December to buy bread, because he or she will come back the next day in a taxi and they'll call you on the way back to explain what happened. Be warned. Peak torque is delivered from 2,750 RPM, so the RS3 does feel marginally more urgent lower down in the rev range, but then it runs out of puff at the top end, whereas with the M2, the higher you climb up the revs, the harder it pulls. A true motorsport engine that rewards you the harder you push. And to cope with all of that power going to the rear wheels only, BMW have gone with the staggered wheel approach with 19-inch 275mm Michelin Pilot Sport 4S tires in front and larger 20-inch 285mm tires in the rear, which makes for quite an exciting drive. On the steering wheel, you'll find your M1 and M2 buttons, which are fully customizable to your desires. So we configured M1 to be the most comfortable setting and M2 to be the most hardcore, but still keeping ESC and all other safety aids on. While I had the vehicle, I was mostly driving on M2. Now, the automatic gearbox comes with 3 speed settings, with 1 being the softest and 3 giving you the most aggressive shifts. Personally, I think setting number 3 is when the car pretends it can't drive and starts throwing you back and forth with every shift. So I find setting number 2 to be the best blend of both worlds. The brake discs are 380mm in front and 370mm in the rear, both with the red M Sport calipers. Those are just steel brakes and not the carbon ceramics, but the stopping power is immense. The duality and versatility of the M2 is sublime, and that 3-liter inline 6-cylinder engine paired with those adaptive dampers is truly a work of art, because once you throw the vehicle in its most comfortable setting, you basically have yourself a pretty decent long-distance cruiser with great fuel consumption. All of this with one touch of a button. Claimed fuel consumption is 9.7 liters per 100 kilometers on the combined cycle. And I got well over 12 liters because I'm a hooligan like that. Other highlight features include blind spot monitoring with lane keep assist, ambient lighting, a head-up display, and the Harman Kardon sound system. Before we get to pricing and the cost of ownership, this is part 2 of the road to 7,000 subscribers, so thank you in advance for that milestone. And if you're enjoying these videos, then do well to hit that subscribe button and turn on your notifications so that you don't miss any of our reviews. Moving on to pricing, what I like is that the base M2, which kicks off from 1.58 million, is already highly spec'd and you literally don't need to add anything else. Unless you're going to be tracking your M2, then you're probably going to need the M carbon bucket seats. The manual M2 will cost you an extra 10,000 rands or 500 pounds, which is quite bizarre because automatics are usually more expensive. But when you think of economies of scale, then it kind of begins to make sense. Because of the 30 M2s currently on sale on AutoTrader, which have been registered in the last 2 years, only 1 is a manual. So it must be costing BMW a fortune keeping the manual transmission alive. Using the base M2 with no optional extras on finance, you can expect to pay 29,600 rands a month over 6 years at the current prime interest rate of 10.25% per annum. Insurance is risk profile dependent and the cheapest quote I got was 4,600 rands. A full tank of petrol will cost you 1,100 rands at the current inland price of 95 octane for the 52-liter fuel tank, which would then bring your total cost of ownership to 35,300 rands. This particular example with only 2,000 kilometers on the clock is available from BMW West Rand for 1.46 million rands. In my RS3 review, I had said that was a compelling offering, and that opinion hasn't changed because it really is. However, the M2 is in a completely different stratosphere altogether. If you're looking for a practical 4-door sedan that is supercar fast on a twisty back road, then the RS3 is your pick. But if you're looking for a more engaging driver's car with a 50-50 weight distribution that lets you become a hooligan when you want to be, then there is nothing like an M2 at that price point. It's much more competent than the model it replaces. The engine is more responsive, and the adaptive dampers are a thing of beauty. I guess that answers the question as to which one I would take home. But let me know in the comments what you're taking home for 1.5 million rands. After having driven the M2, only one thing is certain, and that's the fact that I need to work harder. And who knows, I might just return for an M car. Thank you for watching. Until next time, take care.